The crystal chandeliers hanging above the Ashford Grand Hotel sparkled like stars, casting warm golden light over hundreds of the city's wealthiest guests. Politicians, CEOs, celebrities, everyone who mattered had gathered for the annual Whitmore Foundation Charity Gala. Elegant music floated through the ballroom while photographers captured every smile and every handshake. No one noticed the woman carrying the silver tray. She moved quietly between the guests, almost invisible. Her black uniform was perfectly pressed. Her hair was tied into a neat bun. A polite smile never left her face. But underneath that calm expression, Evelyn Carter could barely feel her legs. She had been awake for 36 hours. Not because she wanted overtime. Because 3 waitresses had called in sick. Because another employee's son had been rushed to the emergency room. Because someone had to stay. And Evelyn always stayed. She always believed that if she worked just a little harder, tomorrow might become easier. It never did. She carefully placed another champagne glass onto a guest's table. The room suddenly tilted. The laughter around her became strangely distant. Someone asked for another drink. Someone else complained the wine wasn't cold enough. Her fingers tightened around the tray. Don't fall. Just 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. She tried taking another step. Her knees refused. The heavy silver tray slipped from her hands. Glass exploded across the marble floor. The orchestra stopped. Conversations froze. More than 300 guests turned toward the noise. Evelyn didn't hear any of them. The last thing she saw was the magnificent chandelier spinning slowly above her, before darkness swallowed everything. Somebody call an ambulance. She's not breathing properly. Move back. Give her some space. People gathered around her immediately. Not because they cared, because curiosity spread faster than compassion. A hotel supervisor rushed through the crowd. What happened? One waiter answered nervously. Miss Carter collapsed. The supervisor frowned. Who allowed her to work in this condition? No one answered. Because everyone already knew. They had all watched Evelyn cover impossible shifts for months. Everyone accepted it. No one stopped it. Then, the ballroom suddenly became silent. Not ordinary silence. The kind of silence that appears when someone powerful enters a room. Every bodyguard straightened instinctively. Several executives stepped aside without being asked. A tall man wearing a midnight blue tuxedo walked slowly through the crowd. No security announced him. He didn't need introductions. Everyone recognized him. Adrian Whitmore, chairman of Whitmore International, the billionaire whose companies employed over 80,000 people. The man newspapers described as brilliant and completely impossible to read. He looked down at the unconscious waitress. How long has she been like this? No one answered quickly enough. His eyes moved toward the hotel manager. I asked a question. Maybe 1 minute. Adrian knelt beside Evelyn. The expensive fabric of his tuxedo touched broken glass without hesitation. A doctor attending the gala crouched beside him. Mr. Whitmore, please let medical staff check her pulse. The doctor immediately obeyed. A few seconds later, his expression changed. Severe exhaustion. He looked genuinely concerned. Her pulse is dangerously weak. She needs a hospital now. The hotel manager quickly called for paramedics. They're already coming. Adrian looked at Evelyn's pale face. Tiny bruises covered her wrists. The skin on her hands was cracked from harsh cleaning chemicals. Even asleep, she looked exhausted, not tired. Broken. Something inside him shifted, almost imperceptibly. Without another word, he slid one arm beneath her shoulders, the other beneath her knees, and lifted her into his arms. The ballroom gasped. One executive whispered, "Did Mr. Whitmore just?" Another finished the sentence. "Carry a waitress?" His chief of security hurried forward. "Sir, I'll take her." Adrian didn't even slow down. "No." His voice remained calm. "But she's just..." Adrian finally looked at him. The bodyguard immediately lowered his head. She collapsed while working for my company. I'll carry her. No one dared speak again. Outside, rain poured heavily across the hotel entrance. The black limousine waiting for Adrian immediately pulled forward. The chauffeur opened the rear door. City General Hospital. Now. The driver nodded once. The limousine accelerated into the storm. Inside, only the sound of rain filled the silence. Evelyn remained unconscious. Her breathing was shallow, almost fragile. Adrian removed his jacket and carefully folded it beneath her head. He noticed how cold her hands were. He frowned. When was the last time she ate? No one answered, because no one knew. For the first time in years, a business report, a billion-dollar negotiation, a stock market crash. None of it occupied Adrian Whitmore's mind. Instead, he found himself wondering about a woman whose name he had never heard until 5 minutes ago. 20 minutes later, the emergency entrance exploded into motion. Doctors and nurses rushed outside as the limousine stopped. The hospital director himself had already arrived. Mr. Whitmore. Adrian ignored every greeting. Save her. Nothing more. Nothing less. Within seconds, Evelyn disappeared behind the emergency room doors. The red light above the operating area switched on. Waiting. It was something Adrian Whitmore hated. Because waiting meant control belonged to someone else. For the first time in a very long time, the most powerful man in the city could do absolutely nothing. He simply stared at the closed doors and waited. The red light above the emergency room remained on. 1 hour passed, then another. Outside the operating room, the hospital corridor had become unusually quiet. Executives from Whitmore International arrived one after another, expecting Adrian Whitmore to leave after ensuring the employee received treatment. He didn't. He stood beside the floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the rain-soaked city, his suit still stained with tiny drops of Evelyn's blood. His assistant, Daniel Ross, approached cautiously. "Sir, the board meeting starts in 40 minutes. Adrian never turned around. "Cancel it." Daniel blinked. "The directors flew in from London. They can fly back." "Yes, sir. And cancel tomorrow's schedule." Daniel hesitated. "The acquisition signing can wait. The television interview, cancel it. The mayor's luncheon, I'm not repeating myself." Daniel lowered his head. Within 60 seconds, appointments that had taken months to arrange vanished from Adrian Whitmore's calendar. No one questioned him. When he made a decision, the discussion was already over. The emergency room doors finally opened. A middle-aged physician removed his surgical cap. "Mr. Whitmore?" Adrian stepped forward immediately. "How is she?" The doctor released a slow breath. "She'll recover." The tension in Adrian's shoulders eased, only slightly. But the doctor's expression darkened. Another 12 hours. He paused. Perhaps less. Her heart would likely have failed. Silence. The doctor continued carefully. Severe dehydration. Extreme malnutrition. Chronic sleep deprivation. This didn't happen in one day. He looked directly at Adrian. "This has been happening for months." The words lingered in the hallway. Months. Not days. Months. Back at Whitmore Tower, the city slept beneath midnight rain, but the lights on the top floor remained on. Daniel entered Adrian's private office, carrying a thick personnel file. "You asked for everything regarding Evelyn Carter." Adrian gestured toward the desk. "Leave it." He opened the folder himself. Employee ID, age, 26. Department, hospitality services. Years with the company, 4. Performance evaluations, outstanding. Attendance, perfect. Disciplinary actions, none. He turned another page. Then another. Something caught his attention. Overtime, every week, without exception. 68 hours, 74, 82, 91, 96. His eyes narrowed. This can't be correct. Daniel swallowed. It came directly from payroll. Adrian looked again. 98 hours. 103. 101. Week after week. Month after month. He slowly closed the file. No one survives this. The next morning, 6 department managers stood inside the executive conference room. No one knew why they had been summoned before sunrise. The atmosphere felt unusually tense. Adrian entered exactly at 7. He didn't greet anyone. He placed Evelyn's personnel file on the polished oak table. Then another stack beside it. Payroll reports, shift schedules, security logs, medical leave requests. He looked around the room. Explain. No one spoke. Finally, the hotel operations director cleared his throat. Mr. Whitmore, Miss Carter volunteered for every additional shift. So no one questioned it? Another uncomfortable silence. A human resources manager answered quietly. She never complained. She always smiled. Whenever someone needed help, she said yes. Adrian's expression remained unreadable. So your defense? He paused. Is that she was too kind? Nobody answered. An elderly banquet supervisor slowly raised his hand. May I say something? Adrian nodded once. The old man adjusted his glasses. Evelyn wasn't trying to earn praise. She simply couldn't watch other people struggle. He looked around the room. When my wife began chemotherapy, Evelyn covered every weekend shift for nearly 3 months. Another manager spoke. When my daughter broke her leg, she worked Christmas Eve so I could stay home. Someone else added quietly. The kitchen porter lost his apartment. She secretly paid 2 months of rent. Daniel looked up in surprise. No reimbursement request? The manager shook his head. She never told anyone. One memory followed another. Small acts, quiet acts. Never announced, never celebrated. Just repeated, every single day. Then something unexpected happened. The hotel's executive chef laughed softly. I almost forgot. Everyone turned toward him. For the past year, someone has been leaving breakfast outside your office every Monday. Adrian frowned. I assumed it was catering. The chef smiled. No, sir. It was Evelyn. The room became silent again. Daniel looked confused. Why? The chef reached into his pocket. I kept one. He unfolded a tiny yellow sticky note. The handwriting was neat. Please don't skip breakfast again. Another note. Coffee isn't food. Another. Big meetings need a clear mind. Eat first. Several people smiled. The chef chuckled. She worried about everyone, even people who never knew her. Adrian stared at the small notes for a long time. He remembered. Every Monday morning. Breakfast waiting outside his office. He had eaten it without thinking, never once asking who prepared it, never once wondering why. For years, someone had quietly taken care of him, and he hadn't even known her name. Daniel placed another document onto the table. This arrived from accounting. Adrian opened it. Not payroll, not attendance, medical reimbursement. Recipient, Noah Carter. Relationship, younger brother. Diagnosis, congenital heart disease. The invoices filled page after page. Surgery consultations. Medication, cardiac rehabilitation. Emergency admissions. Everything Evelyn earned, almost everything, had disappeared into keeping her little brother alive. No luxury purchases. No vacations. No expensive clothes. Nothing. Only hospital bills. Adrian slowly closed the folder. For the first time, he understood why a woman would work 100 hours every week. Not for ambition. Not for promotion. For family. Daniel hesitated before speaking again. There is one more document. What is it? A resignation letter. Unsigned. Never submitted. Adrian unfolded the paper. The handwriting trembled. I am sorry if I have disappointed the company. I simply don't have enough strength anymore. But I cannot stop working. My brother still needs me. There was no anger, no accusation, only apology. Even while breaking, she worried about disappointing others. Adrian stared silently at the page. Then he looked toward the sunrise beyond the glass walls of the conference room. The city was waking. Employees were beginning another workday. Somewhere inside City General Hospital, a young woman who had spent years carrying everyone else was still asleep. And for the first time in his career, Adrian Whitmore realized something no financial report had ever taught him. A company could measure profits. It could measure productivity. It could even measure losses. But it had completely failed to notice the person quietly holding everyone together. He closed the file. His voice was calm. Too calm. I want a complete investigation. Every manager straightened. Every supervisor. Every scheduling decision. Every overtime approval. And every person who watched this happen. He looked around the table. Without asking if she was all right. No one dared meet his eyes. Outside the conference room, the first rays of sunlight touched the city. Inside, something much bigger than a corporate investigation had just begun. The executive conference room on the 42nd floor had never felt so cold. Every senior manager from Whitmore Hospitality sat silently around the polished walnut table. No one dared to whisper. No one checked a phone. No one even reached for the coffee placed in front of them. At precisely 9 o'clock, the doors opened. Adrian Whitmore entered alone. He carried no notes, no presentation, only a thin black folder. That worried everyone far more than a stack of documents ever could. He placed the folder gently on the table, then looked around the room. I'm going to ask one question. His voice was calm. If anyone lies, he paused. This meeting will end very differently than you expect. No one moved. Daniel dimmed the lights. Security footage appeared on the large screen. It showed the ballroom 6 hours before the charity gala officially began. Evelyn was arranging chairs, checking floral decorations, helping the kitchen staff, moving equipment, running between departments. The timestamp kept changing. 7:10 a.m., 8:45 a.m., 11:20 a.m., 2:05 p.m., 5:30 p.m. She never stopped moving. Then another clip appeared. 6:47 p.m. Evelyn approached her supervisor, Monica Graves. Although there was no audio, the body language was clear. Evelyn placed one hand over her chest. She looked pale. She spoke quietly. Monica barely looked at her. Instead, she pointed toward another banquet hall, then walked away. Daniel switched to the next clip. 7:26 p.m. Evelyn returned. This time she leaned against the wall to steady herself. Again, she spoke with Monica. Again, Monica shook her head, then handed Evelyn another serving list. Another clip. 8:11 p.m. A security camera outside the staff hallway captured Evelyn sitting alone for less than 30 seconds. She lowered her head, closed her eyes, then forced herself to stand, returning to work. One final clip. 9:02 p.m. The ballroom. The tray slipped. The glasses shattered. Evelyn collapsed. The screen went black. Silence filled the room. Adrian looked directly at Monica. Would you like to explain? Monica straightened in her chair. Mr. Whitmore, the gala was our largest event of the year. We were short-staffed. I made a judgment call. You denied medical assistance. I believed she was simply tired. Tired? His voice remained frighteningly composed. The hospital diagnosed severe exhaustion. She nearly died. Monica swallowed. I never intended. You intended to keep serving dinner. The words struck harder than shouting ever could. The human resources director finally spoke. There were no formal complaints from Miss Carter. Adrian turned toward him. No, there weren't. Tell me, If someone spends 4 years believing they must never disappoint anyone, do you think they'll file a complaint? The HR director lowered his eyes. I suppose not. No, they won't. They'll apologize. For collapsing. The room became painfully quiet. Everyone remembered hearing those exact words from the hospital report. Adrian slowly opened the black folder. Inside were dozens of handwritten statements. Not from managers, from cleaners, dishwashers, drivers, security guards, kitchen assistants, employees no executive had ever met. He picked up the first page. When my husband lost his job, Evelyn secretly paid for groceries. Another page. She bought school shoes for my daughter, but made me promise never to tell anyone. Another. She skipped lunch almost every day because she was saving money for her brother. He placed the papers back on the table. You all manage departments. He looked around slowly. They managed to know her. Monica shifted nervously. With respect, sir. This is becoming emotional. The company can't operate based on emotions. Adrian smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. No, it can't. It must operate on principles. He took a step closer. And one principle is very simple. No employee should have to destroy themselves to prove they're valuable. He pressed a button on the remote. Another document appeared on the screen. Payroll analysis. Every overtime shift. Every approval. Every signature. One name appeared again, and again, and again. Monica Graves. Daniel spoke for the first time. Our audit found that 83% of Miss Carter's overtime assignments were personally approved by Supervisor Graves. The room erupted in whispers. Monica's face turned pale. That's misleading. She volunteered. Daniel nodded calmly. So we checked. He displayed another chart. Over the last 18 months, 22 employees had requested shift changes. 22 requests had been approved. Except, whenever the replacement involved Evelyn, her schedule remained unchanged. Because management knew one thing, she would never say no. Adrian looked out the window. For several seconds, he said nothing. Then quietly asked, "What is the purpose of leadership?" No one answered. To increase profits. Silence. To reduce costs. Still nothing. He turned back. No. The first responsibility of a leader is to ensure the people who make success possible are still standing when the work is finished. Monica finally lost her composure. Sir, if we're being honest, employees like Evelyn are impossible to manage. The room froze. She continued. They always want to help. They refuse promotions. They never complain. They create unrealistic expectations for everyone else. Adrian stared at her. So, you punished kindness. I managed efficiency. No. His answer came immediately. You exploited loyalty. At that exact moment, Daniel received a message on his tablet. He frowned, then quietly handed it to Adrian. Adrian read it once, then looked toward Monica. Interesting. What is it? You told investigators yesterday that Miss Carter never informed you she felt unwell. Monica nodded confidently. That's correct. Daniel connected another video, not from hotel security, from the kitchen. A forgotten camera. The footage contained audio. Everyone listened. Evelyn's voice trembled. Ms. Graves, I'm feeling dizzy. I don't think I can finish the evening. Monica sighed impatiently. We all get tired. But the chairman is attending tonight. I need reliable people. I'll try. No. You'll finish. If you leave now, don't expect next month's schedule to be generous. The recording ended. No one spoke. Monica's face drained of color. Adrian closed the laptop. You threatened her income. You knew she had a sick brother. You knew she couldn't afford to refuse. He stepped closer. And you still sent her back into that ballroom. Monica whispered. I'm sorry. He looked at her for several long seconds, then replied quietly, "Those words belong to Evelyn, not to you." That afternoon, news spread through Whitmore Tower faster than anyone expected. Supervisor Monica Graves had been suspended, pending formal termination. The overtime approval system was frozen across every hotel in the company. Every employee working more than 60 hours a week would receive an immediate welfare review. Managers would now be personally accountable for excessive overtime. For the first time in years, housekeepers, receptionists, kitchen porters, maintenance workers, people who had never mattered to upper management, began to believe someone was finally listening. Meanwhile, Evelyn stood beside the hospital window, watching birds circle above the city. She had no idea what was happening at headquarters. She believed she would probably lose her job. After all, she had collapsed during the company's most important event. A gentle knock interrupted her thoughts. Daniel entered, carrying a small paper bag. "Good afternoon, Miss Carter." She smiled nervously. "Mr. Ross, I brought something." He placed the bag on the bedside table. Inside was warm vegetable soup, fresh bread, and a handwritten note. The handwriting was unfamiliar. "Recovery is your only responsibility now. The company can wait. A.W." Evelyn read the note twice, then a third time, for reasons she couldn't explain. Her eyes slowly filled with tears. Not because of the soup, not because of the message, but because, for the first time in many years, someone had told her that she didn't have to earn the right to rest. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor echoed softly through the private hospital room. Morning sunlight slipped through the curtains, warming the white sheets where Evelyn Carter lay motionless. The worst had passed. Her blood pressure had stabilized. The IV drip slowly returned color to her pale face. Outside the room, 2 nurses whispered quietly, "Has he really been here all night?" The younger nurse glanced toward the chair beside the bed. Adrian Whitmore sat there with his sleeves rolled to his forearms, a laptop open in front of him. Untouched coffee had long gone cold. Several executives had tried convincing him to leave. None had succeeded. One nurse smiled faintly. He hasn't looked away from her for more than a few seconds. Just after 9 o'clock, Evelyn's fingers moved. Barely. A tiny movement most people would have missed. Adrian noticed instantly. He closed the laptop. The nurse hurried inside. "I think she's waking up." Evelyn's eyelashes fluttered. Everything felt heavy. The ceiling looked unfamiliar. The smell. Disinfectant. Medicine. Hospital. Fragments of memory slowly returned. The ballroom. The silver tray. The music. Then, darkness. She tried to sit up. Pain shot through her body. A warm voice stopped her. "Don't." She turned slowly. Her eyes widened. "Mr. Whitmore?" For several seconds, she simply stared. Confused. Embarrassed. Unsure whether she was dreaming. Then panic replaced confusion. She struggled to pull the oxygen tube away. "I'm so sorry." The words came out almost instinctively. Adrian frowned. "You don't need to. I ruined the gala." She tried sitting straighter despite the dizziness. The guests. The catering schedule. "I should have finished serving table 14 before." Her voice broke. "I'm sorry." Silence filled the room. Adrian looked at her carefully. The first thing she worried about wasn't herself, wasn't why she was in a hospital, wasn't whether she might have died. She was apologizing for collapsing. "Evelyn." She looked down. "You think your biggest mistake was losing consciousness?" She nodded weakly. "I created trouble for everyone." "No." His answer came immediately. "You created trouble for no one. You worked until your body shut down. Those are 2 completely different things." She blinked. Nobody had ever said those words to her before. For years, whenever she became exhausted, people thanked her for working harder. When she became sick, They thanked her for sacrificing more. No one had ever told her that collapsing wasn't her fault. Tears quietly gathered in her eyes. I wasn't strong enough. Adrian shook his head. No. The strongest people, he paused, are usually the ones who collapse in silence. They spend so much time carrying everyone else. They forget they're allowed to ask someone else to carry them. A tear rolled slowly down Evelyn's cheek. She quickly wiped it away. I'm sorry. For the first time, a faint smile appeared on Adrian's face. There it is again. She looked confused. Another apology. Despite herself, Evelyn laughed. A tiny laugh. Weak. Embarrassed. But real. The doctor entered moments later. Good morning, Miss Carter. He reviewed the monitor. You gave everyone quite a scare. I'm sorry. The doctor exchanged a glance with Adrian before smiling gently. I think we're going to ban that word for today. She lowered her eyes. Old habits were difficult to break. Later that afternoon, after Evelyn fell asleep again, Adrian stepped into the hallway. Daniel was already waiting. There is something you should see. He handed over a tablet. Security footage. Hotel loading dock. 3 weeks earlier. The screen showed Evelyn arriving before sunrise. Alone. She unloaded heavy catering supplies herself. No complaints. No assistance. Another recording. She stayed 3 hours after her shift, helping the cleaning crew. Another. She repaired decorations after a contractor failed to appear. Another. She quietly gave her lunch to a dishwasher who admitted he hadn't been paid yet. Every video showed the same pattern. Working. Helping. Smiling. Never asking for anything. Daniel looked uncomfortable. The more we investigate, the worse it becomes. At Whitmore Hospitality headquarters, the internal investigation was moving quickly. Human Resources interviewed dozens of employees. The stories kept repeating. Evelyn always covered my shift. She trained every new employee. She stayed late if anyone had family problems. She never wanted recognition. But one interview changed everything. A young waitress named Lily twisted her hands nervously. I didn't want to say anything before. The investigator leaned forward. Go on. Our supervisor. She hesitated. Always assigned the hardest shifts to Evelyn. Why? Because she never refused. And if anyone else complained, the supervisor would say. Lily swallowed. If Evelyn can do it, why can't you? The investigator stopped writing. What is your supervisor's name? Monica Graves. That evening, Daniel entered Adrian's office carrying another folder. You asked us to investigate Monica Graves. Adrian looked up. What did you find? Daniel placed several documents on the desk. Performance reviews. Complaints. Anonymous reports. Ignored. Closed. Archived. One report caught Adrian's attention immediately. Subject. Excessive workload distribution. Recommendation. Immediate review. Status. Closed. Reason. Insufficient evidence. The complaint had been filed. Almost 2 years ago. Adrian turned another page. Another complaint. Same supervisor. Closed. Another. Closed. Another. Closed. His expression slowly hardened. Someone had buried every warning. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, Evelyn quietly watched raindrops sliding down the window. She hated hospitals. Not because of needles, because hospitals reminded her of her mother. 10 years earlier, cancer had taken her in the same kind of room. Since then, every beep, every white hallway, every smell of antiseptic made her chest tighten. She closed her eyes, trying to calm herself. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. An elderly woman entered carrying fresh flowers. Elegant, graceful, silver hair, kind eyes. Hello, Evelyn smiled politely. I'm sorry. I don't think we've met. The woman smiled warmly. No. But I've heard a great deal about you. She placed the flowers beside the bed. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. Evelyn froze. The Whitmore family. Adrian's grandmother. The founder of the Whitmore Foundation. Evelyn tried sitting straighter. I'm honored. Eleanor laughed gently. My dear, if anyone deserves respect today, it's certainly not me. She studied Evelyn quietly for a moment. You remind me of someone. My younger self. Evelyn looked surprised. I spent 30 years building hospitals. Eleanor smiled. And forgot to take care of myself. She reached over, gently taking Evelyn's hand. My grandson inherited many things from our family. She looked toward the hallway. Money, discipline, pride. She smiled knowingly. But compassion, I wasn't sure he had found it yet. Evelyn followed her gaze. Outside the glass door, Adrian stood speaking with a doctor. Completely unaware they were watching him, Eleanor whispered softly, I think you helped him find it. Across the hallway, Daniel approached Adrian once again. There is one final report. Adrian accepted the folder. What now? Daniel's expression became unusually serious. It isn't about Evelyn. It's about the charity gala. Adrian looked at him. What about it? Daniel lowered his voice. The collapse. He paused. May not have been an accident. Adrian's eyes narrowed instantly. What do you mean? Daniel opened the folder. Inside were photographs, timestamps, witness statements, and one sentence highlighted in red. Several employees claim Miss Carter repeatedly asked to be relieved from duty that evening, but her requests were denied. Adrian slowly closed the folder. The calm expression on his face disappeared. For the first time since the investigation began, someone hadn't merely ignored Evelyn's exhaustion. Someone had deliberately pushed her beyond her limit. And whoever made that decision was about to discover exactly how dangerous Adrian Whitmore could become when someone under his protection was betrayed. 3 weeks later, Whitmore International headquarters had never been so crowded. Employees from every division had been instructed to attend an emergency company-wide meeting. No agenda had been announced. Rumors spread through every hallway. Is the company being sold? Is there going to be a major restructuring? I heard several executives were fired. No, I heard it's about the waitress who collapsed. Nobody knew the truth. On the top floor, Evelyn Carter stood outside the executive conference hall, nervously smoothing the sleeves of the simple navy dress the hospital had helped her purchase before discharge. It was the nicest thing she owned. She still couldn't believe the email she had received. From Office of the Chairman. Subject: Your attendance is requested. Nothing more. No explanation. No indication whether she was about to lose her job, or something else entirely. Daniel approached with his usual calm smile. Good morning, Miss Carter. She bowed slightly. Mr. Ross, I've been trying to prepare what to say. If I'm being dismissed, I understand. Daniel looked at her for a moment. You really think that's why you're here? She lowered her eyes. I embarrassed the company. Daniel almost smiled. No, you revealed something the company had been too blind to see. Before Evelyn could ask what he meant, the conference hall doors opened. Inside, more than 400 employees filled the auditorium. Executives occupied the front rows. Housekeepers, receptionists, kitchen staff, drivers, security guards. Everyone waited. The room fell silent as Adrian Whitmore walked onto the stage. No dramatic music, no prepared speech displayed on giant screens. Only a single microphone. He looked across the audience. For several moments, he said nothing. Then, when I became chairman, I believed the greatest responsibility of leadership was making the company stronger. He paused. I was wrong. The audience exchanged uncertain glances. I recently learned that a company can report record profits while quietly breaking the people who create them. Not a single person moved. This is my failure. Several executives instinctively looked down. No one had ever heard Adrian Whitmore publicly accept responsibility. He continued. 3 weeks ago, sect, an employee collapsed while serving guests at our annual charity gala. Every eye turned toward Evelyn, standing quietly near the side entrance. Many employees had never seen her before. Now, hundreds of strangers looked at her with sympathy instead of curiosity. I have spent the last 21 days asking one question. He looked across the auditorium. How many Evelyn Carters have we failed to notice? Silence. Painful silence. Adrian stepped away from the podium. I discovered something. Our company rewards people who speak loudly. He looked toward the executives, but often ignores those who quietly carry everyone else. He turned toward the audience. So today, that changes. The large screen behind him illuminated. The Evelyn Carter Initiative. Murmurs spread through the room. The presentation continued. Maximum weekly working hours reduced. Mandatory wellness reviews. Anonymous employee protection system. Emergency family medical assistance fund. Leadership evaluations based on employee well-being. Applause began quietly, then grew louder. Housekeepers smiled at one another. Kitchen staff exchanged hopeful glances. For the first time, policies weren't being written to protect profits. They were being written to protect people. Then Adrian surprised everyone again. There is one more announcement. He looked directly at Evelyn. Miss Carter. She froze. Would you please join me? Her heartbeat quickened. 400 pairs of eyes followed her as she slowly walked toward the stage. She had never even spoken into a microphone before. Her hands trembled. Adrian waited until she stood beside him, then addressed the audience. Some of you know her, most of you don't. But over the last 4 years, this woman quietly helped dozens of employees. He began reading from the investigation report. When a cook's wife needed chemotherapy, she covered his shifts. When a security guard couldn't afford rent, she gave him money. When a cleaner's daughter needed school supplies, she bought them. When new employees felt overwhelmed, she stayed after work to train them. He closed the folder. She never requested recognition. She never expected rewards. She simply believed that helping another person was the right thing to do. Many employees lowered their heads. Some wiped away tears. Several of those people were alive financially because of Evelyn's quiet kindness. Adrian turned toward her. Miss Carter. She looked up nervously. On behalf of Whitmore International, he extended a small velvet box. The audience held its breath. Evelyn looked confused. Inside was not jewelry. It was a silver company service pin, handcrafted. Unlike any ordinary employee award, engraved on the back were 5 simple words. Integrity deserves to be seen. You once believed that no one noticed what you did. His voice softened. I did not. And for that, I owe you an apology. Evelyn stared at the pin, her vision blurred with tears. I don't know what to say. You don't have to. The auditorium erupted into applause. Not polite applause. Real applause. Long. Sincere. Many employees stood. Then more. Within seconds, the entire auditorium was on its feet. Not because the chairman asked them to, because they wanted to. Evelyn covered her mouth, overwhelmed. She had spent years believing she was invisible. Now, hundreds of people were thanking her without saying a single word. As the applause slowly faded, Daniel hurried onto the stage, holding his phone. His expression had changed. He leaned close to Adrian and whispered something. Adrian's calm expression hardened. What happened? He asked quietly. Daniel spoke in an even lower voice. Our Singapore office. The Helios Group has made an offer. Adrian frowned. For what? Daniel glanced briefly toward Evelyn before answering. They're attempting to recruit several senior managers. He paused, and they specifically asked about Miss Carter. Adrian's eyes narrowed. Miss Carter? Daniel nodded. Our investigation has become public inside the industry. They believe someone with her character could become the face of their new corporate culture. For the first time, Evelyn realized this story was no longer just about surviving. Without knowing it, she had become someone other companies wanted. And somewhere beyond Whitmore International, people with very different motives had begun paying attention. Adrian looked toward the auditorium filled with employees, then back at Evelyn. Quietly, almost to himself, he said, "It seems this is only the beginning." The applause had barely faded when the atmosphere inside the auditorium shifted. Daniel whispered something into Adrian's ear. Only a few people nearby noticed the chairman's expression change. Not to anger, to calculation. For Adrian Whitmore, that was far more dangerous. An hour later, the executive boardroom was filled once again. This time, not with hotel managers, but with lawyers, financial advisors, corporate strategists. On the large screen appeared a familiar logo, Helios Global Holdings, one of Whitmore International's biggest competitors. Daniel addressed the room. 38 minutes ago, Helios contacted 6 of our senior executives. Another slide appeared. They also requested a private meeting with Miss Evelyn Carter. Several directors exchanged confused looks. A waitress? One of them laughed quietly. They're trying to recruit a waitress. Daniel shook his head. No, they're trying to recruit a symbol. The room became silent. Adrian stood before the screen. For years, we believed our greatest assets were buildings. He changed the slide. Then factories. Another slide. Technology. Another. Capital. Finally, a photograph filled the screen. It was Evelyn, captured unknowingly by a security camera months earlier. She was kneeling beside an elderly cleaner, helping her tie a loose shoelace before beginning another shift. No cameras, no audience, no expectation of praise, just kindness. Adrian looked around the room. This is the rarest asset any company can possess. No competitor is trying to hire a waitress. They're trying to buy trust. Meanwhile, across the city, Evelyn sat in the hospital garden for her final checkup. Her younger brother Noah sat beside her. At 17, he was finally beginning to look healthy. His cheeks had regained color. His breathing no longer sounded strained. He smiled. "You've been quiet." She laughed softly. "I'm thinking." "About Mr. Whitmore?" She looked away. "Everyone keeps talking about him." Noah grinned. "I saw the company meeting online." "You've become famous." She immediately shook her head. "I don't want that. I just want life to feel normal." Noah became serious. "You know," he looked at his sister, "I spent years believing I was the one you were saving." She smiled. "You are." "No." He shook his head. "You've been trying to save everyone, and nobody saved you." Her eyes slowly filled with tears. Back at headquarters, Helios arrived. Their CEO, Victor Lang, early 50s, sharp suit, perfect smile. The kind of businessman who viewed compassion as another market opportunity. He entered Adrian's office confidently. "Mr. Whitmore." Adrian offered a brief handshake. "What brings you here personally?" Victor smiled. "I'll save us both some time. I want Evelyn Carter." The room became completely still. Victor continued. "I've read every news report. My analysts have studied the public reaction." He leaned forward. "People don't admire your company. They admire her. So, I'd like to make her an offer." Daniel frowned. "She isn't a product." Victor smiled. "Everything has value." He slid a folder across the table. Inside, a proposed partnership, a $1 billion hospitality expansion. At the bottom, one handwritten condition. Evelyn Carter will become Helios Global's Director of Employee Culture. Salary: $5 million per year. Private residence. Company vehicle. Lifetime medical coverage for Noah. Education fund. Personal staff. Every executive in the room stared at the numbers. It was an extraordinary offer. Victor folded his hands. If she joins Helios, the partnership proceeds. If she declines, so does the partnership. Silence. The directors waited. One whispered, $1 billion. Another quietly nodded. It's only one employee. It's only one employee. Daniel glanced toward Adrian. He knew exactly what everyone was thinking. From a purely financial perspective, the answer was obvious. Adrian slowly closed the folder. He looked directly at Victor. You've misunderstood something. Victor raised an eyebrow. Oh? You believe she belongs to this company? Victor smiled. Doesn't she? No. Adrian answered calmly. She belongs to herself. Victor's smile faded. If she wishes to leave, I'll thank her. If she wishes to stay, I'll support her. But I will never trade a human being for a business deal. He pushed the contract back across the table. The partnership is declined. The room froze. $1 billion. Rejected. In less than 30 seconds. News traveled through the business world almost instantly. Financial journalists couldn't believe it. Investors questioned the decision. Market analysts called it irrational. Social media exploded with debate. Some criticized Adrian. Others praised him. But inside Whitmore International, employees felt something they had never experienced before. Security guards, receptionists, kitchen staff, housekeepers. They all reached the same conclusion. Our chairman just proved. We're not numbers. 2 days later, Evelyn knocked gently on Adrian's office door. You wanted to see me? He smiled faintly. Come in. She sat nervously. Daniel quietly left the room, closing the door behind him. Only the two of them remained. Adrian placed a folder on the desk. I received an offer for you. She looked surprised. I know. I've already declined it. Her eyes widened. You? What? I declined it. She looked completely confused. But you didn't even ask me. I wasn't finished. He slid the folder toward her. You should still read it. She slowly opened the documents. $5 million. Housing, medical care, everything Noah would ever need. She looked up. I could never accept this. Adrian leaned back. I know. You know? He nodded. You've spent your whole life choosing people over money. I wasn't going to let someone else use that kindness as a marketing campaign. She lowered her eyes. They weren't buying your talent. They were buying your reputation. Silence settled between them. Finally, he spoke again. I have an offer too. She smiled nervously. I don't think I can become an executive. He laughed softly. I wasn't going to ask. She looked puzzled. I want you to help me build something we've never had. He handed her a single page. At the top, one title. Director of Employee Well-Being and Community Programs. She looked stunned. I've never managed anyone. I don't need someone who knows management. He smiled. I need someone who remembers what it feels like to be overlooked. Tears rolled quietly down Evelyn's face. Not because of the promotion, not because of the salary, but because, for the first time, someone believed her greatest strength wasn't how much she could endure. It was how deeply she cared. She looked at Adrian. I'll accept, but only if one condition is included. He raised an eyebrow. What condition? She smiled through her tears. No employee should ever have to apologize for needing to rest. Adrian extended his hand. Agreed. She shook it. Outside the office window, the city stretched toward the horizon. Inside, Whitmore International wasn't just beginning a new chapter. It was becoming a different kind of company, one built not only on ambition, but on humanity.